It's time for a review of the new Divisive album by nu metal behemoths Disturbed. This is their first album since 2018's Evolution, and it dropped only today. As a lad growing up in the noughties, I found that nu metal was everywhere and demanded to be heard, so I'm very excited to see what these guys are doing in 2022. I just listened to their new release for the first time only a few minutes ago, so let's get into the review! The opening line is, "Have you had enough of it? Mate, we've only just started, calm down." David Draymond is actually very skilled at singing. He has crazy good control of his voice. Disturbed are still being very true to their nu metal roots, which is great to see after all these years. I find it entertaining that the radio effect makes an appearance. I swear this was a staple of literally every hard rock and nu metal song in the noughties. I must confess, the radio filter was probably the very first effect I used when I first started recording myself in the noughties. Disturbed have successfully completed the nu metal songwriters checklist in their very first song on this album. Radio effect, bell tolling, getting up to speed sound, gent guitars, incomprehensible noise from the vocalist during the intro, and use of the word shit. A nice soft synthy intro. Jesus Christ! Very headbangy. Some Ozzy Osbourne tier rhyming schemes here, rhyming man with man. Strong piercing solo at the 3-minute mark and tasteful use of the pitch shifter pedal. Disturbed are always well known for their riffs rather than their solos, so I'm glad I got to experience that. The title track. Tell you what, the vocal melody is very good and gives a good bit of respite from the pure aggression and shouting of the first two songs, but still maintains a good level of strength. Another tasty solo, lots of tapping and wah by the sounds of it. Someone's been listening to Kirk Hammett. Very genty verse. These riffs just pound into your brain like a pneumatic drill. However, when the chorus kicks in, the drums go all boots and cats and boots and cats and for some reason, which made me laugh out loud when I first heard it. It was just completely out of left field. Not so sure about that choice. Took me out of the spirit of the music a bit too much. Fair play for trying something different. Not a fan. Also, what are you doing with this ASMR whispering nonsense in the middle 8? Definitely the weakest track for me so far. Call me basic, but I just think Disturbed do good riffs. Something for which nu metal got ridiculed even in its heyday was their rather formulaic approach to songwriting, to which I argue, blues. There's nothing wrong with using inspiration from within the genre to write more music in that genre. More radio effects. Does a radio sound even mean anything to anyone these days, outside of an aesthetic choice? This is a much more introspective song, probably the slowest and least aggressive piece on the album so far. Still heavy though, so they haven't disgraced their tone with a ballad yet, but it gives a good balance to the rest of the album. Soft, doomy guitar arpeggios, croony vocals from Mr. Draymond, choir synth. Okay, this is probably a ballad. Let's see where this goes. The guest appearance of Hearts and Wilson is a nice touch. After her verse, the big guitars come back in, and later another guitar solo. Goodness, you are spoiling us. Not sure about this one. It ends with some piano and violin, which is a bit saccharine for my taste, considering the genre. Then again, I appreciate that after 24 minutes of yelling, you'd probably need a break, I guess. Bit of a divisive number, this one. Oh! Now we're back into it. That is a terrific riff to open on. Good gang vocals on the chorus too, but they put in that bloody ASMR thing again. Good to hear the old Draymond growl making another appearance. The drums throughout this album has been locked in so tight with the guitars, there is no breathing room at all. I don't really have much to say about this song, nothing about it stands out to me. Feels a bit like filler if I'm entirely honest. Hang on, at 2 minutes 30, that's the Down to the Sickness monkey scream thing. Interesting musical quotation there. Disturbed are well known for interesting choices when it comes to covers. Their version of Land of Confusion, incredible. Sound of Silence, I loved it. I fully expected this track to be a nu metal version of the Tom Petty song. Thankfully, it isn't. Something shouldn't be done. And this track is a great way to close out the album. Good to see that Disturbed are still keeping it nice and powerful, even after nearly 30 years of this. So many bands, as they get older, fall into the trap of becoming sentimental and melancholic, and that's fine. It's somewhat disingenuous to be singing about teenage angst when you're old enough to have teenagers. Blink-182, I'm looking at you. A hell of a long time to be this heavy. Poor eardrums. Overall, a delightful, down-tuned, distorted and deafening experience. Sometimes that's just what you want and need. I'll give it a good old 8 monkey screams out of 10.